Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Salina City Commission study session for the downtown hotel proposal. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Wood.
All right, Mayor and Commissioners, we're here today to talk about a proposal that was brought forward by Lighthouse Properties. Had several conversations with Lighthouse Properties over the last couple of months about doing a second hotel in the downtown. Honestly, when they came to me and they said, hey, we want to build a second hotel, I thought, cool. I thought it would be in a different location than what they proposed. So they came forward and they said they'd like to build this hotel in the 200 block of South 7th Street. So if you're familiar, that's the city-owned parking lot that's at the corner of 7th and Walnut, so behind Old Chicago. It abuts Spielman Plaza. So at that point, we kind of started having conversations about what it would take in order to get a project like this off the ground. And so we're at the point where we felt like it was time to get this in front of the City Commission to get your direction about moving forward. So with that, I'm going to turn this part over to Lighthouse Properties. Guy Walker is going to come and just kind of give you an overview of the plan, and then we'll talk about financing and what that looks like when he's done with that. So go ahead, Guy.
Thank you very much. All right, well, so Jacob obviously gave some background, so I thought I'd start maybe a little bit. Jacob gave shared the idea of where we were thinking about putting this hotel, so I thought I'd back up a little bit. So we've been talking about building a second hotel downtown for a while now, and have looked at the numbers and the occupancy and rate that the Homewood Suites is getting appears to indicate that the downtown area will support a second hotel. So got to work on that a little bit, and as you know, the Homewood Suites is a Hilton brand. So we decided that we felt like Marriott would make more sense than another Hilton brand. So we applied and were able to secure the franchise for a Spring Hill Suites in downtown Salina. 80 rooms is what the current franchise agreement states. That can be adjusted by up to 20% if we would choose to, but right now it's 80 rooms. I don't know, just to share kind of, again, some of the background. So Marriott and Hilton, they are the two biggest hotel chains in the country. They have by far the biggest reservation systems and the biggest the number of rewards customers. So we feel like having one of each in the downtown area really helps. Travelers are typically pretty loyal to one or the other, so we really feel like having a Marriott downtown would increase the potential customer base. So, and as Jacob said, we initially planned on building the second hotel east of the current hotel. So you may be familiar with the parking that's at the corner of Mulberry and 5th Street. We felt like that would be a good spot for the second hotel. But as we kind of got to working on it a little bit more and looking at some of the site planning, we just got a little bit nervous that those guests that stay at that hotel, instead of visiting the downtown stores, would potentially, and restaurants, would maybe get in their car, and decide that it was a little bit too far of a walk, so they might get in their car and go somewhere else. So we started asking ourselves, is there a better spot where we could maybe build the hotel and have it serve, or have the guests have, really easy access to downtown. Hopefully the idea would be to spread those guests out amongst the downtown restaurants and stores and all that kind of thing to really, again, kind of increase the overall economic impact of having a hotel downtown. So let's see, where was I? That kind of made us, the difficulty, I guess, we started looking around. The difficulty, I'd say, is that to have enough space for a hotel and the associated parking obviously narrows the available sites substantially. And then on top of that, for operational reasons, we would really like it to be close to the current hotel. It helps us in terms of staffing. It also increases the ability for the guests of the two hotels to use the meeting space that's currently in the Homewood Suites. So again, it kind of needs to be fairly close. So started looking around, and obviously that parking lot is one of the largest pieces of property in the downtown area. So we just kind of got to looking at that. And then probably the most important thing, though, I would say, is Spielman Plaza. Jacob referenced it, and having that really beautiful 50-foot wide access point that provides a direct and very attractive, easy-to-use link to downtown and to Santa Fe is really probably what made us go, hey, that might actually work. That might give customers on a hotel, that even though it's behind and not necessarily on the main street because of that direct access point, we felt like that might work well for us, and work well for our hotel guests. So I don't know if how to scroll ahead, maybe a slide. So this is a perspective looking north. You can see the current hotel, the Homewood Suites, down sort of on the bottom of the screen, and then over to on the left-hand side is the proposed Spring Hill Suites, and then the parking garage, a potential parking garage attached to that. Basically, that takes up the entire, those two structures would take up the entire parking area from where the church owns the parking lot all the way to north to Walnut Street. Let's see, maybe, I guess you could stay there for now. One thing, I don't know exactly how much to share, so haven't done, we're in a pretty preliminary stage right now. I mean, we have worked with an architecture firm and done enough work to know that like this is doable, but it is very preliminary in nature. So, you know, it's not too late to change things. This is kind of step one of what will probably be 1,000 steps. So just wanted to, you know, obviously, like Jacob said, get your input on this and whether or not we should keep working on it. The current parking garage that is shown is 389 parking places. The current parking lot has 155. So if you think the hotel would need about 90 spaces for an 80-room hotel, that would be a net gain of 144 spaces for the downtown area overall. So just kind of wanted to share that, at least the way it's currently drawn. Let's see what else. And then just to share with you too, in preparation for this meeting, knowing that the packet goes out on the prior Thursday and these drawings would be available for the public to see, we met with tried to meet with as many of the stakeholders and property owners and business owners right in this immediate area to share with them what we were thinking and try and get some input from them, understand what concerns they might have, what they might be excited about. And I would say generally the reception, we talked to a lot of people, probably, I don't know, I'm going to guess in the 20 to 25 people range. And I would say generally the overall reception, you know, people were very receptive, felt pretty positive about the project, but admittedly we did have a few people share some concerns, mostly about the scale probably of the size of the parking garage. So if you all feel like this is a project we should keep working on, we'll go back to the design team and see if we can't make some adjustments to the project to address some of those concerns. So I don't know how much you want me to go through. If you could maybe advance another slide. I can't remember exactly what order they're in. Most of these are just, you know, renderings, architectural renderings of what they would look like. So this is a view of the parking garage from the intersection of Walnut and 7th Street, basically looking southeast. Maybe go one more. This is just a view, so you kind of see what it would look like from, that's from the hotel, from the current hotel. And then keep going. I think we tried to show what it would look like also on the next slide from Santa Fe. So like if you were walking on the sidewalk or if you were in a car, that's what it would look like from Santa Fe. So you can't see it over the tops of those buildings, but it's not super prominent. If you could please advance one more. That's 7th Street looking north. So you can see the hotels on the south end, as I mentioned, up against the church parking lot, and you can see the parking garage on the north side of that. And then the rest of these are just different views of the hotel. One thing that I maybe didn't share, if you could maybe go to the very last slide, or second to last, or actually go back up one. Sorry, I didn't realize that's the one it was. So that is right there. That is basically standing on 7th Street, looking looking east towards Santa Fe. So the idea would be is that we would basically create a continuation of Spillman Plaza. So the 50-foot wide space that makes up Spillman Plaza would continue all the way from Santa Fe all the way to 7th Street. So there'd be that nice 50-foot wide separation between the hotel and the parking garage. Ideally creating, again, a nice connection between the parking garage, the hotel, and Santa Fe. We would try to, you know, obviously beautify it, so that it's much like Spillman Plaza is today, and was made for easy accessibility for the parking garage and for the hotel. That actually, you can see that little overhang on the right-hand side of the, that'd be the main entrance to the hotel. And you're basically, this is this is a view from like the drop-off area for the hotel guests. So they could pull in, much like they do today, check in, and then go park once they checked in. That thing across the top that is mimicking the current crosswalks ideally would be a connection between the parking garage and the second floor of the hotel, so that hotel guests, once they did go into the parking garage, could access the hotel directly, without having to go back downstairs. The price tag, the estimated price tag for that kind of startled us, so I'm not 100% sure that would be part of the project, but at least it was an idea. Trying to think of anything else that would be relevant. Maybe if you could scroll down, I think the other views are, there's a view of the main entrance into the hotel, kind of from the same general vicinity, looking east towards Santa Fe. Maybe go one more. This is a view. I just wanted to kind of show what the back of the hotel would look like. So you can see the brick pavers in the alley. And so that back area is an outdoor courtyard that would be sort of attached to the pool area and the fitness center of the hotel. So I think this is kind of looking to me sort of like if you were on the roof of the art center, you would sort of be looking down at this. Other maybe relevant piece of information in terms of dimensions and kind of overall planning is currently this is showing that the closest the parking garage and the hotel would get to the backs of the buildings that are on Santa Fe right there is 30 feet. So if you imagine the current alley is 10 feet wide and then immediately the parking lot starts, this would actually be 30 feet away. So the parking garage would actually not start until 30 feet away. So essentially the alley would grow from 10 feet to 30 feet. Trying to think of anything else I should share. Maybe more. One more just concept is the way it's drawn today is the parking garage has some design features that make it so it's just not completely a concrete structure on the 7th Street and Walnut Street facades. So it does have some stone accents, some brick accents, and some ephes type accents. Trying to make it not be just a big giant concrete structure, but also think about budget as well. So that's about it, I think. Let me see if I I think I've shared everything I had planned to share, and Jacob I think is going to talk a little bit about the possibility of funding related to the parking garage. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have if you want to wait until Jacob goes, and then I can come back up, whatever you'd prefer.
Just one about so the actual entrance, if a person was pulling up in a taxi, there'd be no entrance on 7th Street. They'd actually have to walk along that plaza to get into the hotel. Yes, not very far. The site plan that you see, it's kind of hard to see on there, but it would be, it's the lobby and area is on that corner right where the drop-off is. So if they pulled up in a taxi, they'd probably have to walk maybe 10 to 15 feet inside the plaza, and then the entrance would be right there.
Okay, I'm going to probably pull up in my car, no luggage, and I'm not used to your Washington, D.C. type hotels, but I guess I'm trying to visualize where I'm going to leave the car, unload the luggage, and go in and check in.
So I don't know if you can see it on there. If you if you see Spillman Plaza and you see as it continues west towards 7th Street, thank you for zooming in. You can see 7th Street, and then there's that little dip off of 7th Street. So very similar, if you can imagine the way like right now, the way you pull off of Mulberry Street now, that's what we're drawing or showing similar as you would pull off of 7th Street. There'd be room for maybe 3 to 4 cars. You could leave your car there and go in, check in, and then go back, or unload the luggage as you pointed out, and then you would have to get, no different than today at the Homewood. You'd have to get back in your car and go find a parking place.
And with the Homewood, you said this 80 rooms. How's that compare to what Homewood offers?
Homewood's 113.
Okay.
And this would have It would have one meeting room, probably no more than 1,000 square feet, whereas the Homewood has about 2,500 square feet of meeting space inside, and then the outdoor courtyard's another 5,500. So the Homewood has far more meeting space than this one would. This would be more prototypical, like you would typically see a Spring Hill Suites anywhere. And then the idea, I guess, behind that maybe to share too is a little early to be thinking about this, but our goal would be to build this one substantially for less money than we did the Homewood, and be able to have the rate for this one come in probably in the $20 to $30 less per night than the Homewood. Homewood gets pretty expensive as it fills up right now, and so we'd like to obviously have an offering that's more approachable for more people. Any other questions?
I'll wait.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll be happy to come back up if you have further questions, or if something comes to your mind while you're listening to Jacob. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
She'll go to the next slide then. You blow that up.
A little small.
Okay, so obviously this is a little, kind of a unique project in that it would take place in a city-owned parking lot, a public parking lot. So at some point we would have to figure out a few things. We'd have to figure out the transfer of property and ownership of the site for the hotel. I don't think the city would want to own that long-term. At this point in our conversations, we've talked about, because it would be a public parking garage, that the city would take on the responsibility long-term for that parking garage. So in order to make that happen, we would have to bond finance that. And right now, what we're looking at is approximately $13–14 million that would need to be spent for the parking garage. We have really kind of taken a look at a bunch of different funding sources. And actually, I'll tell you, when we first started meeting and having these conversations, we were not sure that we'd be able to fund this without using taxes that could be generated. I guess what the goal is to try and fund the parking garage with taxes that are generated in the district. And when we first started having these conversations, we weren't really sure that we could get there. But had a lot of conversations with Lighthouse Properties and with Debbie, our finance director, and have kind of come up with what we think is a package that would allow us to fund the entire parking garage with taxes generated in the district. So just a couple of those would be, it looks like we could use a portion of tax increment financing that's generated in the downtown TIF. And I will tell you that the downtown TIF, this parking lot is not included in the downtown TIF. For some reason, there's some legal reasons that we had it in at one point, but we pulled it out kind of at the last minute. And there were some legal reasons that we did that. We would have to put this parking lot back into the TIF district and allow, then we'd have to amend the development agreement or the master development agreement to allow us to use some of that increment to fund the parking garage. We would likely need to do a new TIF district, which would be just over the hotel site, which would allow us to capture the property taxes, sales taxes, and transient guest tax from the hotel for a longer period of time. So right now, the TIF district runs through 2039, the downtown TIF district, and we would be able to do a new TIF district just over the hotel that would go out another 20 years. So sales tax, TGT right now that's generated at the hotel site, it is in the Star Bond district, so it would go to the Star Bond. And until the Star Bond is paid off and we no longer have projects there, that money would go to the Star Bond, but there's potential that once the Star Bond has expired, we could take some of those sales tax and transient guest tax dollars and put that back towards the project. We would likely need to do another CID, which is a community improvement district, 1 or 2% sales tax above and beyond the current sales tax in the location, which would make it even with the current hotel and its sales tax. There's also potential that we could take some money from the Star Bond and maybe add a project to the Star Bond and shift that to pay for part of the cost of the garage. So it's going to take a lot of work to get there. If this is something the Commission is interested in, there's a lot of process, amending the downtown master development agreement, amending how we use the downtown TIF, a new TIF, new CID, quite a few new districts that would go into place. And then there would also be a request that we use some of these TIF dollars or tax dollars to offset the cost of the hotel as part of their incentive package, just to make them be able to build the hotel. So that's really kind of the spread of all of the financing mechanisms. At this point, we really just need the city commission to say, hey, you're interested in this, you feel like it is a project that we could move forward with, and then we'll start working through the process of, land transition, all the development there'll be a new development agreement, and then lots of public hearings and just process to get through creating all of these districts. So with that, be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Mr. Wood? Go ahead.
Yeah, mine was probably more for the developer. Yeah. Is there market studies, whatever, that would suggest that Salina has the need for the rooms?
Well, so we looked at, it's called Smith Travel Research, I think. We call it STR. And you can analyze either an entire hotel market, or you can kind of pick and choose. You can't see what any one hotel is doing, but you can see what your what you consider your competitive set to be doing. So, like for the Homewood, for example, we compare ourselves to, I believe it's the Hilton Garden Inn, the Courtyard, Fairfield, the Holiday Inn, and the Holiday Inn Express, I think, are what we would consider our competitive set. So as a collective group, we can see what they're doing compared to the Homewood. And I would say that probably if you just look at that competitive set, the answer would probably be no. There probably isn't necessarily room for another hotel. But if you look at what the Homewood is doing by itself, the answer would be yes. So Don knows a lot more about the statistics, but he said traditionally when you look at a hotel market, you'd want to know that you're doing over 75% in occupancy year round, like that's kind of smoothed out for the year. And thankfully, the Homewood is doing that. And the rate is such that we feel like there's definitely room to come in, like I mentioned, below that at $20 to $30 below. So but admittedly, we haven't done like a large, other than analyze the data that we haven't done like a traditional maybe market study. But that would be the way we would interpret, kind of what we see. I would say the other big thing, Commissioner Davis, would be Marriott versus Hilton. Marriott is bigger than Hilton in terms of the reward system and the reservation system, like by a pretty significant margin. And Salina only has 2 Marriott hotels, the Fairfield and the Courtyard, totaling probably less than 150 rooms. So when you think about having the largest hotel, kind of the pool of customers, I guess, so to speak, in the largest reservation system, and the entire city of Salina only has 150 rooms, we feel like that also really helps support the idea of another 80 rooms, given that it would be branded differently than the Homewood in downtown.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Okay. Yeah. Anything else from a finance perspective? The only other thing I was going to share is that, as Jacob mentioned, was I was looking at the numbers before I came in. He mentioned that ideally this would be covered by the incentives being generated within the district, and a large part of that is due to a new hotel because of transient guest tax, and the amount of property tax that just one hotel pays is substantial. So that in and of itself drives a lot of new revenue that is available then to support the idea of the parking garage.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning, this is currently just a public parking lot, so it generates $0 in property taxes. So
good point.
If we continue long-term with that being a parking lot, we're not going to see any additional revenue. The revenue that would be generated at the hotel in terms of sales tax, transient guest tax, and property tax is a lot bigger than zero. So it would help to offset the cost of the hotel project and the parking garage long term.
And I think, like, from our perspective, part of what we're looking at is, part of, thinking about why would you even build a second hotel, not just because we think the downtown will support it and because we would like to continue, but primarily we'd like to see the downtown area to continue to improve. And we feel like, to keep the traction going, you need new projects from time to time. And with a hotel, you get 100 people, hopefully a night, roughly, new people visiting your restaurants and shops. And so just feel like that's really important to kind of keep again, keep the momentum going for downtown. And was going somewhere with that I completely lost my train of thought. It was more related to the financial piece, but I know what I was going to share. Just the other thing that I guess, as Jacob kind of alluded to earlier, that besides the one for the new hotel, the other districts will expire. And I think it's important to remember that if we are able to keep this project, meaning the entire downtown project, sustainable and successful for the long term, eventually those districts expire, and the county and the school district and the city and the state will get those those new tax dollars that are currently being collected by those districts will eventually go to the taxing jurisdiction. So I think it's good for all of us if we keep these, if we keep these, do what we can to keep these projects successful. So.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Within the Marriott family, I would assume that a hotel downtown would steal, too rough a word to use, but you would take customers from the other hotels. Does Marriott look at the same territory and decide if another hotel is a good idea or whether it's oversaturation?
They do, yeah. That's part of the franchise application process. So when we put in our application, they notice the other Marriotts in town, and they look at the data to make sure that they feel at least they would be looking at some of the same things that we are. And they probably, obviously, they get to see a lot more than we do. But yes, they when they approve the franchise, I think that was their indication that they feel like it can be supported by Salina.
I'm done. Okay.
So how many floors is the parking garage going to be?
Oh, I think I have that over there. I want to say 4 plus the roof, I believe.
4 plus roof.
I mean, there'd be parking on the roof, which I think would make that the 5th floor. I'm pretty sure, yeah.
And you said, you made some comment about a concern about the cost and whether the garage would actually be done. So
whether it would be done?
Yeah, whether you would do the parking garage. Did I misunderstand that?
No, I think, sorry if I apologize, I wasn't clear. There was some concern about the scale of the garage, and what I meant by that was the size, like just that it seems overwhelming for that area, for that parking lot. And so just was, I think as we work on this more, we'll all have to ask ourselves do we need 389 spaces? Should it be less than that? Is it worth it to cut a floor off and save money? There'll be lots of questions like that. I was just trying to indicate that this is a very high level drawing.
Okay.
So those things could be adjusted and changed. Yeah. And I want to make sure, we want to make sure that we do what we can to address the concerns of the people who expressed them. So.
And I take it that there would be zero cost to park here, both by the public or by hotel guests?
I believe that's the idea.
Yeah,
we sure haven't talked
honestly,
about paid parking.
Yeah, we haven't. The administration or how we run the parking garage is not. We didn't really have any of those conversations. But certainly, as a city employee, I don't think we want to take on the task of trying to manage paid parking. That I just don't think that would be very effective for us. I don't think there's, while you'd make a little bit of revenue, I don't think the bang for your buck is enough to really make it work. And I've seen a lot of other communities try that and really struggle with it. So I would anticipate we would not have any paid
that would
parking.
be my preference.
I think that would be our preference as well. Yeah.
The other question I had, and I know the hospitals had their parking garage for a significant amount of time now, and I'd be curious as to what kind of annual maintenance they have on that, if it's if there's any ongoing maintenance that we need to be aware of.
We'll do some research, and I did reach out to the hospital, and I haven't gotten a response just yet, but and I will reach out to some other communities that have parking garages. There obviously will be some maintenance that has to happen. I mean, there'll be an elevator that's going to need annual inspections and that sort of thing, and we'll have to make sure that we are keeping it up and running and that sort of thing. So there will be some additional ongoing costs to maintaining the parking garage, but we'll certainly get some data from some other communities that have similar parking garages garages and find out what that looks like.
And I also anticipate we'll need to have discussions with OCCK as far as the drop-off location that we currently use in front of on 7th Street there.
Yeah, I think
may
we
need to
certainly
be
would.
moved.
We haven't had any conversations with them yet. They're in the audience.
We've had one.
So
yeah, we did have one.
okay.
Yeah, you
So,
have
yeah,
not, but
I
we
have
did.
not.
Just to
Yeah.
let you know, yeah,
Okay.
we reached out to them. Katie was able to get a hold of them, and just at least to let them know that we would be here today.
Okay, good. Let's see. I had a couple other questions here. Let me find them real quick. Utilities for the hotel. I know when we did the other one, did we have to upgrade the water and the sewer and do some things?
I know we had to relocate. We had
Relocate
part of
the
it was
sewer.
relocation because we built over an alley.
Right.
In this situation,
This
thankfully, we would not be
situation,
built
I'm
over.
guessing all the utilities are within the alley.
Either the alley or 7th Street, I believe.
Okay. So there wouldn't be. 'cause I
Yeah,
know
we
had
didn't
to
see
deal
any
with that.
concerns
Okay.
with utilities. Now, obviously, there'd have to be a more detailed view of it, but
Right.
we did have staff take a look at that and didn't see anything concerning at the time. So,
And then, does the 13 million, if we bond that, does that go against our bonding limit?
I believe it would.
It would. And I guess we'll need to know what I know we have substantial room, but we'll want to know exactly what we have
we'd
for
have to
our
provide lots of details
remaining
about what that
bonding.
would look like.
And the other thing is, I mean, we're a long way from this happening, but as we get into it and we talk about, funding the garage, or the parking garage and everything, we're going to have to do some kind of cash flow analysis to see where those dollars are coming
Yeah.
from, so we're comfortable that we are covering the bond cost and everything.
Yeah,
So
makes sense.
I like the idea of adding parking spots downtown. We have the old Dollar General building, J.C. Penney's, is about a half block away, and our biggest concern about trying to fill that is there's a lack of parking. That big AT&T building sits behind it, so we really have a problem with parking for that. So I think if we look to fill some of these other spaces, we are going to have to come up with a solution for parking spots, potentially.
So does any staff know how many parking spots currently exist in the 7th Street lot?
I believe it's roughly 155.
So we would be more than doubling that. And my mind works like, I know with progress there's pain. So where's people going to park when this is under construction?
No question about that. So the the architect that we use also has a construction arm of their company. So that's where we've been. They shared the cost estimates for the parking garage in the hotel, which is the number Jacob was using, the 13-ish million, and they say that construction of a parking garage of this nature can be done in 6 to 8 months. I think primarily because it's precast concrete.
Precast concrete.
So you obviously you would want the precast in production before you started to do very much work on the actual parking lot, but that's their estimate on the time frame. I have to admit I don't have a lot of experience with building parking garages, so I can't, I don't know with certainty that that's true, but it would be, obviously we would try to, abbreviate it as much as possible.
Well, I appreciate the continued interest and investment.
Thank you for your support of downtown. We appreciate it as well. We
I'll
work
look
hard to
at
keep it going.
I'll look at city staff again, and this seems like the same conversation we kind of had last week when we were talking about the proposal for the mall. Is we look to cash flow the parking garage through dollars that are generated in the downtown area, so it's not really affecting the public's property taxes or anything like that, correct?
Yeah, that's
And
correct.
that's
So the downtown TIF, those funds that district has already created, and those funds can only be spent in the downtown, and then this new TIF district would be right at the hotel. So it's all incremental tax dollars. It's not dollars from the general fund. It's not property tax dollars that we're receiving today. It's all growth tax dollars.
And I think an important part of this is currently the star bonds and the TIF are all outperforming our what we
Yeah,
had
absolutely.
projected,
If
correct?
they, the TIF district in particular has outperformed what we thought originally, and honestly, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation if the TIF district wasn't doing as well as it's doing. So I mean, it's done really well. It's enabled us to do a lot of projects, and part of this is we're also trying to reserve some money in the downtown TIF fund for other new business projects. So we could raid the entire fund and fund maybe without doing an additional TIF district, but that would take away from other projects that we see coming down the pike. So we're trying to preserve some of those funds for new business projects while continuing to grow the district, kind of as a whole. So yeah, it's all very, very good news or positive news about how well the downtown TIF is doing and what it's going to enable us to continue to do.
And the STAR bonds are projected to pay off in 2031, around that time, 2031 or 2032
time frame. And this actually
this would accelerate that probably
that as well.
And they're not supposed to pay off till 2039. Was the original
right,
underwriting. Yeah, so I think that's both of those things, as Jacob mentioned. I think the TIF, I remember when we were trying to do the projections for the TIF, 8-9 years ago. It's hard to predict not only county valuation, but it's also hard to predict how much investment is going to happen. Thankfully, a lot of people have spent a lot of money on the different buildings downtown, and every time they do that, it just raises the county valuation, and then it raises the property taxes being paid by the businesses. So, it's been...
So this would eliminate one of our public bathrooms downtown. Has anyone thought about that?
I will cross my mind, yes.
Yeah, so we haven't had any conversations about that. I think there could be potentially a bathroom built into the parking garage if we felt like that was important to go back in that location. But that's a future conversation we'll just need to have as we move forward.
I know, in cities I've been in parking garages, bathroom use in the parking garage is an issue.
Yeah.
And, I don't know how long-term, how he looked to secure and monitor stuff like that, but we would be eliminating a bathroom, and we tried closing that a few years ago, and consequences were not good. So
I think there's a lot of details like that. I mean, certainly as the hotel, we'll be an interested party in those conversations, trying to figure out what so that there'll be a lot of work to do in those to answer some of those questions that you're describing. I think we were trying to stay away from that for now, just not really knowing if it would, if y'all would feel like it was worth us kind of continuing forward. So
yeah, I understand we're a long way for details like that,
but they will come quickly.
Yeah. So what would be the timeline on this?
It's a good question. I don't know. We have a franchise agreement in place. We paid the franchise fee, application fee, so we do have a clock that's ticking. Thankfully, it's fairly generous. I believe we have 2 years from the time we signed the franchise agreement to start. That's actually just to start construction. But we'll be working to try and, if you all feel like it's something we're worth working on, we'll be trying to time development of the plans and timing of starting construction. Obviously, when you can maximize the, building in the prime time of building. So we would minimize the disruption to the parking lot and things like that. But to be honest with you, I don't know. I don't really have a good feel for that right now. It's hard to predict too as Jacob pointed out, there's a lot of work to get done in terms of amending TIF districts, amending the development agreement. That's all going to take time. And so until we get a little further, I don't know.
And there's some prescribed time frames that have to happen as in terms of public hearings and that sort of thing.
Right.
So, if the city commission thinks this is a project that you're interested in and you want us to continue to work on it, we'll start to develop those timelines and figure out what the process side of it takes.
Yeah.
And then kind of back into that with the construction time frame that works for Lighthouse Properties.
Any other comments or questions?
Well, I'm supportive.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all's time today very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just the scale of a project like this, if it was done poorly, architecturally, it would be an eyesore. And this is just the different uses of materials, and even on the parking garage and the use of the plaza, the alley. I mean, it's tremendous. It really is aesthetically very pleasing, and I'm just very dynamic. I'm impressed.
I'm for moving forward and trying to to continue to both for the city and the individuals wanting to do this to continue to move forward and start putting whatever in place to make sure we can finance it properly.
Okay, if there's consensus there, we'll continue to work and get legal involved with the agreements and some of the taxing mechanisms, and we'll start moving forward. So,
Thank you. Well, we'll call this and we'll resume at our normal meeting time at 4.
He does read. Oh, I think we're on.
Yes, we are. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome, welcome. We will now call the Salina City Commission meeting for September 22nd, 2025 to order. And I'll request staff confirmation that the Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been properly provided.
Yes.
Thank you. On to roll call.
Mayor Linkowitz.
Here.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Hoppeck.
Here.
Commissioner Ivey.
Here.
Commissioner Longbine.
Here.
Those that are able, please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. No public hearings today, so on to the consent agenda.
Item 4.1, consider approval of the minutes of the September 8th, 2025 regular meeting.
Is there anything Commissioner would like taken off the consent agenda? All right. Does anybody wish to comment on the consent agenda? I'll bring it back to the commission.
Okay, I'll move the consent agenda be approved as read.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve this consent agenda as read. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. On to administration 5.1.
Item 5.1, consider a project authorization for the design, purchase, and installation of a splash pad for Jerry Ivey Memorial Park in the amount of $709,165, and authorize the city manager to authorize the purchase and installation of the splash pad upon the fulfillment of all prerequisites under the purchasing policy.
Mr. Hammond.
Thank you, Mayor Linkowitz, City Commissioners, Jeff Hammond, Director of Parks and Recreation. I'm before you to present and request a project authorization for the design, purchase, and installation of a splash pad at Jerry Ivey Memorial Park. Some background, in December of 2024, the governing body postponed awarding a sole bid for the construction of a new natural-themed splash pad, a water wall feature, an improved memorial, gazebo improvements at Jerry Ivey Memorial Park. There were concerns at the time about the expense of the bid related for the project and how it exceeded the project budget and stretched the available funding. That bid was approximately $1.8 million at the time. In January of this year, City Commission received an updated information from staff related to that postponed meeting, and the staff and the engineer reduced the scope of work in that project, and which ultimately reduced the overall price of the spray ground, water feature, and officer memorial. However, overall concerns regarding the construction cost of the splash pad and the other items with the project budget led to the rejection of that sole bid. On April 14th of this year, staff provided the City Commission comparable splash pad information from projects from around the Great Plains region, comparing costs and comparing features with other facilities, size, number of splash pad features on each pad, and requested feedback from the governing body. The comparable splash pad projects that were displayed somewhat fit into two categories. Splash pads being similar to the former Jerry Ivey splash pad with 10 to 12 features, no theming, not really a destination style splash pad. And two, the splash pads with more advanced features, larger size, larger footprints, rock formations, more of a themed look to it, or river channels. It was communicated to staff at the meeting from the governing body that, it was communicated by staff to the governing body. The range of costs per square foot for the projects were between $250 per square foot and $350 per square foot for construction costs of modern current splash pad construction. The consensus from the governing body was to use the new design at the new location on the south end of Jerry Ivey Memorial Park. The splash pad as the base bid, so the splash pad would be the base bid, and everything else that went along with that original project would have been the alternates, such as the water wall, the officer memorial, sidewalks, landscaping, gazebo improvements, and so on. This was in an effort to manage expenses and to control costs and keep it under budget. Despite updating the bidding documents and reaching out to firms in Kansas and Missouri, no bids were received from that updated project. Bids were opened on July 31st of this year. Feedback from construction companies indicated they were at or near capacity, with larger projects prioritized. Adapting pretty quickly with consultation with the city manager, staff published a request for proposals on August 5th of this year, which was targeted towards splash pad manufacturers. This is a similar process that we have followed for proposals relating to playgrounds purchases and the installation of those playgrounds. The projected budget for the RFP that was put in the RFP was $650,000. Key features of the request for proposal, which is included in your packet, the request for proposal. We wanted recirculation. We wanted sand filtration as the recirculating system. We wanted some level of automated chemical control. We wanted it to be durable. We wanted vandal-resistant materials, powder coating on metal to avoid oxidation, and resistant to UV light and fading. We wanted it to be accessible, wheelchair accessible, with a secure non-slip surface in the range of 2,400 to 2,600 square feet, which was similar to our former splash pad at Jerry Ivey. We wanted a balance of ground and elevated features totaling 8 to 14 with electrical grounding and a timer system. And we wanted the location to be in the same location as the former splash pad on that north side of Jerry Ivey Memorial Park. As I said, the RFP that was published is provided in the packet along with the questions and answers that the different proposers asked. The RFP attracted 10 proposals from 6 different firms. After evaluation through a scoring system that's outlined in the request for proposal, based on budget alignment, experience, features, maximizing features, design and layout, value to budget, warranty and efficiency, ATHCO LLC, option number 1, stood out with the highest weighted score. The proposed work by ATHCO would be the splash pad infrastructure, which includes water supply, return lines, concrete work, feature installation, and a 5-foot perimeter sidewalk around the splash pad. The total number of splash pad features in their proposal was 17 on approximately a 2,800 square foot footprint of a splash pad. There would be a building installation, a mechanical building, which I included some photos in the staff report of that building. Offloading, crane handling, digital art, if we were to do that. This provides a very good structure for ease of maintenance staff at a above ground level, and really limits the confined spaces that staff would have to enter to maintain such a building, or maintain the splash pad, or winterize it, or bring it ready for season. It also includes some benches, restoring the site, and comprehensive staff training for the operation of the splash pad and for the winterization and startup. Should be noted in the proposal that ATHCO's proposal did include a digital art included in the mechanical structure, and they included as a price point in their proposal. The value of that digital artwork is $9,100. We did look at that very closely and work with Crystal Hammerschmidt, the visual arts coordinator for Arts and Humanities. The art would have to be submitted very early before manufacturing of the equipment would start or the mechanical building would start, and our timelines really wouldn't fit. Arts and Humanities would go through a call to artist process, come before the Community Art and Design Board, come to this governing body to approve that public art, and that would have taken more time than I have and wouldn't really meet my timeline, which would be as quick as possible to get these submittals taken care of, to get this under contract and manufactured. So it's our recommendation to not include the digital or digital art component of ATHCO's proposal. And it would be a reduction of $9,100 from their original proposal. And I do show that reduction in the project budget in the staff report. However, in the future, Ms. Hammerschmidt and I would work together in the future to identify a potential art project that could be appropriate, could meet our timeline, and we could include a potential art on that one side of a mechanical building in the future. City staff does have some responsibilities in this project. We would be responsible for those final utility connections. We want to do a little bit of site prep. We got some rock there we need to remove. We do want to make sure we get some geotechnical testing to make sure that the compaction of the existing site meets our specifications for compaction before ATHCO starts work or the proposed project starts. And again, like I said, there's final utility connections, and we would provide a dumpster, removing soils and meeting those compaction needs. I have a timeline. I did not include a timeline with this with the staff packet. However, I have one up on the screen for the public to review. Also, there's one being given to the city manager and you, the governing body, as well. This is a projected timeline. Of course, any timeline for construction projects is subject to weather. And for some brevity and to remove the number of pages that would show some of the winter months, I did remove part of January, all of the month of February, and part of March, because those would be months we could not be doing construction in. So starting today with the project authorization to the review of getting a purchase order together, reviewing colors, products, design, and having all those approved, and then initiating that manufacturing sequence. And you can see some of the lead times that I put in here for that manufacturing process to occur. While that manufacturing process is occurring, we're preparing the site. We're making sure it's ready for the proposed contractor to get access to. Second page shows that a length of time of the manufacturing process for the mechanical structure and for that splash pad equipment that's on top of that slab. And then I put a date of March 16th as a potential start date for construction. It could be earlier, could be unfortunately later, depending on weather. But if we have available time at the end of February or 1st of March, we want to be able to take advantage of that weather and go and get after it. But with the timeline that ATHCO put in their proposal, this is the timeline that they said as far as the amount of time it takes to do this installation. And it seems to work out well where the manufacturing process would end and it'd be delivered and they can take receipt of it and put it in. There is a possibility of the company that manufactures this equipment holding it for a brief period of time or 2 or 3 week period of time, and then delivering it so ATHCO's construction folks can take it and immediately start putting it into play. A few other items I have for you. financial overview, Athco's detailed expenses minus the digital art is $640,896. City costs were be budgeted at $34,500. A 5% contingency is included, which brings a total requested project authorization of $709,165. We would be using the Park Improvement Capital Fund, which has a balance of $1.5 million approximately. The 2,800 square foot site and the total requested project authorization results in a estimated per square foot cost of $253 per square foot for this proposed splash pad. Option one for you today for consideration for governing body consideration. We propose a motion to approve this project, emphasizing a best bid approach in line with Salina Code Section 2-235C, which would include the design, purchase, and installation of equipment from Athco LLC, and also authorizing the city manager to oversee purchases contingent upon purchasing policy criteria. Other options, as usual, for the city commission to consider or to vote on would be to provide amendments to option number one, postpone this project authorization, or vote to deny the project authorization. Staff recommends option number one. I'm available for any questions that you might have. Also, Matt Klein is here with Athco to discuss any aspects of his proposal that you might wish to ask. And I stand for any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Hammond?
Just one question and one comment. Does the city have any ready-to-go art that could be supplied?
I believe Ms. Hammerschmidt is here. She can answer these probably better than I can. During our conversation, she did not indicate that we had any ready-to-go digital art. It would have to be digital art, it would have to be sent as a file to Athco, and then they would use that to, in the manufacturing process, to apply that digital art to the metal panels of the mechanical building.
I'm sure there's a lot of steps in there I don't understand, but that sounds logical and reasonable.
Yeah, it definitely has to be part of that manufacturing process. It can't be done afterwards. Yeah.
I was in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I told the city manager, wow, I saw this real nice splash pad at a park they have, and I think I took some pictures of it. I was going to hunt through my phone to try to find it, but I think this is an upgrade over that one. This looks nice.
Thank you.
Well, this has been a long process, and I'm glad we're making some progress. I think I would like to hear from Athco on their background and experience doing these kind of splash pads.
Hello, Matt Klein with Athco. Athco is a manufacturer's rep for landscape structures. Aquatics is the water division of landscape structures. We've been their rep for 50 years now, and we're in our 73rd year of business as a company. We're located in Lenexa, Kansas. We cover all of Kansas and the western two-thirds of Missouri. And we do turnkey splash pad installation for aquatics products. I handle the KC metro area. We have a sales rep that had a schedule conflict, so I'm standing in for her today for this meeting. But we've got a lot of experience with splash pad installation as well as post-install support. So the fact that we're just a phone call away, we're in Lenexa, goes a long way. We can return calls pretty quickly, and if anything does happen, turnaround on replacement parts is pretty quick. Everything is made in Delano, Minnesota, just outside of Minneapolis. And LSI and Aquatics, and then their Shade division, they're all 100% employee-owned, U.S. made. So they take a lot of pride in what they put out the door. And I've been doing this for Athco for 14 years now.
Well, that certainly answered my question.
And not that it matters, but I'm from Salina, so.
Really?
I have a question that maybe Matt could answer. What's the warranty on this product, and is there different warranties on different
There's
features?
there's different warranties based on materials, but typically the above grade features, I believe, carry a 20-year warranty. If you guys ever experience, and it's rare, but it does happen, vandalism or anything of that nature, you can actually take the component to a local body shop, and the paint process is very similar to auto body. So you don't have to send it back to the manufacturer. It's very user-friendly for maintenance. But, you know, for the next 20 years or so, you all can be, you know, very proud of having this splash pad out at Jerry Ivey.
And I noticed we're doing some of the electrical, plumbing, and so on and so forth. Is that common? And
Yes, it's
that is common. And two, that doesn't affect our warranty on any of the.
No, it does not.
Okay.
It does not. Yeah, any licensed connections we typically don't handle.
Okay.
But we'll take care of the general construction, the concrete, the rebar, the bonding of the features, and then we'll take that bonding out to the bonding loop for the electrician that the city would subcontract directly to. So a lot of overlap, but like this isn't our first splash pad, so
Right.
We're familiar with working with other trades.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. And this is probably for Jeff. You made a comment, this one has 17 features. You know approximately how many our old splash pad had over there at Jerry Ivey?
10.
10. So this is an upgrade. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
I did put in my staff report, but I didn't go into specifics. The 2 references I did receive of the 4 that were provided from ATHCO, from Matt, was Blue Springs, Missouri, and then Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas area. Their reviews were of ATHCO's work, as they have a preference of doing playgrounds with ATHCO, and they couldn't speak high enough about their work.
Well, and again, I think it's imperative that we get this installed in May at the latest so we can have a full summer use and everything, so.
That was my next question. You have the substantial completion tentative of April 15th, 2026.
Yeah, tentative, yes, and that gives us some time.
You got to guarantee us this is going to be up by summer.
If I had a crystal ball and told you what the weather was for the next 6 months or 9 months, I probably could. But it's all subject to weather. Any construction project is. But I think having a substantial completion date in mid-April gives us a 2 to 3 week window to hit for that normal operating start for splash pads, which is May 1st. Which I think May 2nd is a Saturday, so that would put us around that time.
So is that 1 month construction time about what you normally do?
Yes, roughly. I mean, if we have a mild winter, we can get started a little earlier, but we typically see that kind of 4 to 5 week start to finish time frame. And I'm confident we can get this operational.
Good.
That's reassuring.
So the location of where the old one was, there was issues with the plumbing and stuff due to the ground?
It was our feeling it was due to the compaction of the area, and then how low that area is over the years had a lot of moisture in there. We had some flooding in that north half of Jerry Ivey Park at given times. We addressed that while we did concrete work to allow water to get off of that area and into the road. But it's very important to me and to Troy Reinert, the facilities maintenance superintendent, to make sure we have a level of compaction of 95% or higher before we hand over the site to Matt's team.
So
And that compaction is important.
We've identified what the problem was then, and
I believe so.
We're confident this one will be.
I believe so.
Any other questions? I'll bring this to the public. Anybody wish to comment on this item? I'll bring it back to the commission.
Mayor Linkwitz, finding pursuant to Salina Code Section 2-235C that the proposed approach toward soliciting and awarding the best and lowest bid and not the low bid for the purchase and installation of the splash pad is in the public interest, and authorizing a project for the design, purchase, and installation of a splash pad at Jerry Ivey Memorial Park in the amount of $709,165, and authorizing the city manager to authorize the purchases upon the fulfillment of all prerequisites under the purchasing policy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I find that pursuant to Salina Code Section 2-235C, the proposed approach towards soliciting and awarding the best and lowest bid and not the low bid for the purchase and installation of the splash pad is in the public interest, and authorize the project for the design, purchase, and installation of a splash pad at Jerry Ivey Memorial Park in the amount of $709,165 with Athco LLC, and authorize the city manager to authorize the purchases upon the fulfillment of all criteria under the purchasing policy. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. And on to 5.2.
Item 5.2, consider authorizing the city manager to enter into an Axon master service and purchasing agreement with Axon, Inc. for the purposes of consolidating separate existing contracts.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for entertaining us. Captain David Villanueva, City of Salina Support Division Commander. We have 4 Axon contracts with Axon, Inc. One's a body-worn camera system, one's an in-dash car camera system, one's an interview room video capture system, and one is for ECW's Taser 7. The objective of that we're trying to go down the path is trying to consolidate these and try to see if we can have some cost savings. And we are able, under this particular consolidation, to combine the in-dash camera as well as the interview room cameras that we have. By doing this, we are able to save yearly $19,099.42 for a total savings over a 5-year contract of $95,497.11. The total amount of this contract then would become $275,976.45. We then are going to try to tackle the other 2 as well and bring them into compliance with with this current one. Our body-worn camera contract is currently between 2024 and 2028, and our Taser is 2022 to 2026. So we'll be going after the Taser one next to try to get that consolidation and see if we can have a cost savings in there as well. With this, our Fleet 2 cameras, which is the term that we use for the cameras that are in the car currently, those will go from Fleet 2 to Fleet 3s, which is a better camera system to be able to have the higher definition. And most importantly, it has active viewing, so the people who are in the supervisor positions as well as the dispatchers can see the live viewing of those cameras. So if the officer's on a stop, the dispatcher or supervisor can see exactly what's going on the stop from the purposes of the interior of the vehicle to be able to see if the officer needs some assistance or exactly what's going on in the interaction. That coincides also with our body-worn camera, so we have a view from the back and a view from the side of the contact. And in addition, it expands or continues the rear view of the passenger compartment, which is where, if you will, the detainees would be, so we can see exactly what's going on with them as well, recorded. You can see whether or not they're in distress. You can see whether or not they're trying to hide some contraband or they're trying to slip the cuffs or whatever might happen. So it kind of protects and insulates the department from any accusations of impropriety as well. Plus, we also have evidence then gathered if they do try to shed something. The interview rooms are going to be increased as well, because right now with the interview rooms we have push buttons which start the recordings and stop the recordings, but then we have to go through a computer system to be able to then put tags on all the recordings that we have. This will allow us having a keyboard right there that we can actually put the information in from the incept and let it record and then terminate, and we don't have to go through those extra steps later on. By doing this, we have a 5-year contract, and again, we have the cost savings, as I previously mentioned. We think that was probably a good idea. Captain Larson was the one who negotiated that discussion and was able to get those concessions from Axon to do this consolidation. So under this, there are 4 choices for the commission: to approve the motion to authorize the city manager to execute the contract with Axon Enterprise Incorporated for combined contract goods and services in an amount of $275,976.45. Part 2 would be the same, except also adding with any amendments as you dictate for us. Part 3 would be to postpone consideration to a specific date and give us direction if you'd like us to go a different path or a different research. Or 4, take no action and we'll continue the contracts separately and at the cost separately.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Captain Villanueva?
The body cams, are we still at Axon 4?
I don't remember exactly what the status is. I think you are correct, though. It's the latest version.
That's the latest.
Yes, sir. Pardon me for adding, this also has what's called a technology assurance program. So if technology jumps up in these 5 years, that technology comes on board without any reservations or additional cost. It's part of the program.
Very nice.
And previously, dispatch was not able to view the dash cams?
Not the live view, no.
Okay, that's a pretty neat feature.
Yeah, they can live view the body worn camera, which is great,
Right.
but you know, body worn cameras can be knocked off very quickly, and luckily with the dash cam, you can see on a traffic stop exactly what's going on. So it's very helpful, and especially helpful if we put people in front of the camera so we can capture evidence if like a DUI or something like that. So it's pretty handy to have that.
It's tremendous. I remember the days of the VHS tape in the trunk vault, going back a few.
Yeah, luckily this everything, all these things we talk about uploads directly up. CT has provided us that assistance to be able to do that, so we don't have to mess with those things, the stacks of VHS tapes.
Thankfully. All right. Any more questions? Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Any member of the public wish to comment on this item? I will bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, I move the city manager to approve executing a contract with Axon Enterprise Incorporated for a combined contract goods and services in the amount of $275,976.45.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Axon Enterprises Incorporated for combined contract for goods and services in the amount of $275,976.45. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. On to development business 6.1.
Before we get started with development business, I will need to recuse myself from items 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3.
Understood. Thank you.
Right. Item 6.1 concerns the Aero Plains Development Agreement Amendment and MIH-ARPA Grant Agreement, and it's 2 action items. Item A, to consider approval of resolution number 25-8311, adopting amendment number 3 to the Building Kansas LLC Development Agreement. And item B is to consider approval of resolution number 25-8312, recommending and supporting an amendment to the moderate income housing grant agreement between Kansas Housing Resource Corporation and the city regarding Building Kansas LLC.
Ms. Driscoll.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you. As you can see in the staff report, and as you are aware, over the last number of years, we've been working through how to incentivize housing, how to increase our housing units. Nationwide, we have a housing crisis where demand is exceptionally high, building materials are exceptionally expensive, the supply chain is exceptionally slow, and manual labor is exceptionally limited, which really creates a situation which lending is exceptionally tight with high and rising interest rates. So as we've gone through developing the Live Salina plan and the associated incentive program that goes along with that, trying to meet our housing goals, one of the projects that has been worked on over the last few years is Aero Plains, which has been developed by Building Kansas LLC. As a reminder, this is a two-phase project on what is 53.26 acres north of Schilling Road and east of Centennial. The development in total will have 169 lots with 2 townhomes per lot for 338 units at full build-out. Phase 1 includes 75 lots or 150 units, and Phase 2 includes 94 lots or 188 units. As a little bit of a touch point to the history of this project, in March of 2022, the city formed an RHID, or Rural Housing Incentive District, and then in May of that year approved a development agreement for Phase 1, granting Building Kansas LLC 100% of their RHID value for 25 years. And then in September of 2022, the developer applied for a moderate income housing grant, which we have worked on those in different developments here in town as well. And that application was denied in September of 2022. In February of 2023, Building Kansas LLC did secure $1.5 million worth of MIH ARPA grant for 50 units and $1.056 million in Kansas Housing Investor Tax Credits for 40 of their homes. Since then, in March of 2023, the city amended the development agreement to allow an additional $2 million in RHID eligible expenses to offset rising infrastructure costs, leaving an unused amount of $2.36 million. And the agreement was also amended again in October of 2023 to make a definition clarification of what is finished square feet. Most recently, in December of 2024, the developer received approval to allow 100 of the 150 units to be sold to either owner-occupied or investor-owned units, which really starts to allow for some rental in that area. So the request in front of you today has 2 components. One, the development agreement, which is the city's relationship with the developer, and then also the grant agreement. And those 3 are tied together. The grant agreement is essentially the relationship between the city helping to manage that program on behalf of the state and its relationship to the developer. So we'll start with the development agreement. So Building Kansas LLC has reached out to staff in July 28th of 2025 and noted that a shift in economic climate since the execution of their development agreement, along with the cost of materials rising and labor, particularly noting tariff impacts on materials, has made it more difficult for them to make a profit and keep the price points that are noted in the development agreement, along with the timelines that were being expected through the development agreement. Having built more of the product now, they are more familiar with the timeline and wanted to bring that back to the city to make sure the development agreement was more reflective of the current situation. So their specific request would affect Exhibits F and G. Building Kansas LLC has met the first and second benchmarks outlined in their development agreement, and they're being proactive to deal with their future development agreements. Currently, the plan notes that everything goes off of a commencement of construction. So the first date is 120 days after the expiration of the nullification, must commence construction. And then from there, we keep adding dates, 18 months, 30 months, 36 months. What the developer is proposing here, after building more of these units and getting the quality that they wanted, they're suggesting that the table be revised, that the last 2 portions, instead of 30 months, would be 36 months, and instead of 36 months, 54 months. They're asking basically for an 18-month increment between those 2 sections to give them that time. They're also requesting a change to Exhibit G, which is the required housing standards and outlines their price points for their different unit types. They have the Gulfstream, the Lear, and the Citation. It actually had a different name at the original, sorry. And the development agreement does allow the developer to come back and make a request to modify those costs based on what the market is doing or market changes. And that is part of this request. As you'll see in the table that's highlighted in the staff report, one of the things that the state of Kansas does, and we didn't build into the development agreement and what the developer's asking for, is MIH actually publishes an annual state guide for maximum prices. And what they're requesting is that we use that annual increase as a way to let the prices of the home annually move along. And that's something that the state has calculated based on our county, based on our demographics, and takes the market into consideration. So by doing this, it allows the developer to stay in line with the state's guidelines. It also allows it to move as the market does. And you'll see in the table, it notes those price increases and how it would affect these units for 2025. As I mentioned, we would also need to make a change to the current request of the grant agreement. And the grant agreement outlines right now that construction in this development shall begin by September 1st of 2023. Box checked, we did that. But must be completed by the 31st of March 2025. The developer, along with city staff and state staff, have met and talked about this timeline, and the state is comfortable with moving that March 31st, 2025 timeline and expanding it to September 30th of 2026. But in order to do that, the state's request to us was to work with the commission to see if the commission is okay with this date, and then to adopt that in a resolution, which would then affect the grant agreement. But the state was comfortable with that number. And basically, by getting those 50 units built by September 30th of 2026, that would complete the city and the developer's obligation to the MIH. So with that, there's neither support or denial of proposed amendments, which would represent an impact to staff at this time. The staff is already managing these grants, so the decisions before you wouldn't create more or less work. And the financial implications of them are not direct to the city's budget. They're based on the price of units, which affects the developer. They're based on the timelines of the project. And the grant agreement being extended has no direct fiscal impact on the city. So in summary, you have two actions in front of you today. One is for Resolution 258311, which would amend Building Kansas LLC's development agreement, as we discussed. The body can either adopt the agreement as presented, suggest amendments that you deem appropriate, postpone consideration on this item and give additional feedback to staff, or vote to deny the ordinance, resulting in a development agreement remaining as it currently is and adopted. The second item before you is 258312, and that is a resolution to amend the Moderate Income Housing Rescue Plan Act program grant. It's possibly the longest title I could come up with for this project. If you were to do that, you could either approve the resolution recommending and supporting the amendment, you could approve the resolution with amendments, or give further direction, postpone consideration for additional information, or lastly, vote to deny and provide additional direction to staff regarding how the City Commission would like to proceed.
Thank you.
Stand for questions. Thanks.
We have any follow-up questions for Ms. Driscoll?
In effect, then what we're doing is waiving the monthly reduction for failure to comply.
Microphone.
Oh, sorry, thank you. Didn't want to flip all these pages with the microphone on. Thank you. So in effect, the net action of this is basically to waive the 2.5% monthly reduction for failure to comply.
No, Commissioner Davis.
Functionally, unless another 2-3 years out, they're still not complying.
Yeah, the fee would still be there. If you reset their date, then that's the date they have to work to. And if the amendment isn't agreed to, then yes, that would still apply. You wouldn't waive it.
From a practical standpoint, they could take as much time as they wanted to right now, but they'd have to incur the reduction.
Correct.
So as long as we keep granting extensions, they stay out of the penalty phase.
Yes.
Practical. I'm not saying the reasons for extension aren't good or valid, but
yes, the idea is that they would come forward and amend that schedule rather than waiting to the last minute and then getting penalized or not addressing it at all. But if you weren't to change the schedule, I think as you're saying, then yes, there would be a fiscal penalty. I'm sorry, I did forget to mention too, I believe representation of the developer is here if you have questions for them as well.
I've seen this written in all of our agreements. I don't know if we've ever penalized anybody for failure to comply. I mean, it's a nice thing to have in there, but
Well,
it's
it could happen.
we just never get there. Okay. That was all.
Any more questions?
Well, I appreciate the developer. I know it's been a tough market and I think the painful part of that development is probably past. I know there was a lot of delays at the front end, but it seems to be going well now. So, and holding the line on the cost, I don't know how they're doing it, but I guess I would have a couple questions for the developer.
Leave my accessories? Sure. I'm up here for the next 3 items, so.
It was a concern of us absorbing all this housing. So can you tell me how it's going now?
Yes, so we have an excellent update. You know, homes have been for sale for almost a year. We've sold approximately 2/3 of the homes, 30-some homes. We can report that of those sold, about 25% moved from Salina. 40% are from Kansas, but outside Salina, and 35% from outside the state of Kansas. So 3 out of 4 people moving into these homes are coming from outside Salina. And that's a great thing because it is bringing population to this town. Many of them coming here for work, unable to find housing otherwise. Those in town often are coming into a one-level living situation and opening backfill housing in Salina. That was one of our goals in this. So yes, it certainly has been a challenge. As Commissioner Longbine mentioned, it has been. And labor costs, material costs, a builder that we parted ways with early on. We brought in a better builder, a builder that we're proud to work with, a builder that we're very happy with. And sometimes it takes 18 months to build and sell 50 homes. Now, if we can build them in less time than that, that's to our benefit because we don't get any reimbursement for our HID until those homes start producing incremental property tax. So we are certainly motivated to get the homes built and sold as quickly as possible. And the state guidelines we're willing to work with on the price increases certainly don't keep pace with what consumer price index or inflation has done, but are reasonable based on the state's factors in the county specific to Salina for what housing here should cost that meets the criteria. And we can work with that. You know, it is going well. So yes, things are good, and homes are selling well. Several sold in August and September both. We've got several pending, and customers are happy, and we're very happy with the progress and the end result. I know several commissioners have been out there, and we appreciate that you've come out and seen the product for different events, and we're very proud of what we've built. It's a beautiful, beautiful neighborhood, safe neighborhood, and very happy with it. It's probably more answer than you wanted, but what other questions can we answer?
Yeah, and you know, from what I see, I think it's a really good value per square foot of, you know, the build quality is good and finish is nice.
Thank you.
Appreciate what you're doing.
We're very, very nice homes. Good, high quality, high efficiency homes at the right price.
I don't think there are any more questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And I'll ask if any member of the public wishes to comment on this item.
No problem. Mayor, Commissioners, my questions are mainly questions and comments, more toward the RHID. In the staff report, it's mentioned that in March 22nd is when it was formed through resolution. I don't think that's correct, but I'll go over that. And then in the requested change to Exhibit F, the timeline, which is kind of what I want to ask, and I'll probably direct these questions mostly to council because he wrote the contract. It says that they met the first 2 benchmarks with a construction start date of October 1st, 2023, and 1/3 of the units done by April 1st, 2025. In the Exhibit F, it says 120 days after expiration of nullification period set forth in KSA 125246. I said the May date wasn't right. June 22nd, 2022, the RHID was established by ordinance 22-11123. The 30-day period of nullification would have put that at July 26th, 2022. The 120 days after the nullification would have been the commencement date, and that date was November 23rd, 2023. Now, the first 50 units should have been done by May 23rd, 2024. The second 50, May 23rd, 2025, and the third 50, November 23rd, 2025. So you can see we've blown way past some of those. And then the remedy is if, the developer believes that it's going to be delayed, then they can come and do this. Now, I've looked through the 9 actions and all the amendments since the HID was established, and I could find in no place where that was amended. In fact, the staff report says the starting date was October 1st. Like I said, the question mainly is, we've got a date that was thrown out as a commencement of construction as October 1st, 2023, and that does not correspond with the nullification period or the ordinance establishing the district or any of the other things in the actions taken. So, first of all, I think it's important to be clear as to what the commencement day actually is. And part of the reason is that I'm not concerned about the MIH, but in Resolution 258312, if you look to the fourth whereas, it says, whereas construction of the Aero Plains Addition commenced on the 7th of July, 2023, and that's yet another day that we're throwing out there for the commencement of construction. So if everything builds off of that date, I think we need to make sure that that date is set properly, or we need to maybe think about doing amendments retroactively. As far as the incentives, I hope you don't penalize them, because I think there's a lot of confusion wrapped around this. I don't want them to be penalized on the MIH because it helps to make these houses affordable. I wish them a great deal of luck, but I think staff needs to be helping them out a lot more if they need more hand-holding, because it seems like they may not even knowingly have blown through some of those deadlines. But I hope that you can provide some clarification to what the actual commencement of construction date should be according to the development agreement.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'm looking quickly to Ms. Driscoll to see if in the work with bond counsel, who has taken care of, it's as you might imagine, a rather specialized area that has involved bond counsel's assistance throughout the process. I don't know if Ms. Driscoll has a thought on how we should proceed or not.
I think for the sake of the meeting, to pull that number out and to create the accuracy and to be able to verify, it wouldn't be productive here in the moment. If the body feels it's necessary to postpone, I need to sit down with our staff and go through those numbers. But I can tell you from where we've been working with the state on the MIH, we have been meeting our timelines. And we have been working with bond counsel, not Mr. Bankston. So at this point, there's nothing we can do during the meeting. So if the body finds it necessary to postpone, we can do that.
Thank you. Okay. Well, consult with the rest of the commission. What are our thoughts, gentlemen?
I would move forward.
I'm fine with that. We got to move forward.
Postpone or move forward.
All right.
Mayor, if I may, and that was not just an effort to punt on my part. It was a matter of just wanting to be sure we were proceeding appropriately and looking to the right folks to resolve any of that. Am I correct that that is something that could still be addressed
Yes, we can most certainly do that post-action, and staff is happy to prepare a memo for the commission for your next meeting that reassures you of those timelines, and we would work with bond counsel to do that. I just don't feel prepared in this moment to give you the type of answer that you would need.
I understand. Thank you very much. Any other member of the public wish to comment on this item? I will bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Lees.
Go ahead, sir.
Got another comment.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, we are in working with the city where we had an agreement that was done in July of 23 after there were revisions back and forth. That was what we have had and been working from with staff and with ourselves and our developers, which gave us a construction start date of October 1, 23, and that's what set the completion of the first 50 to April 1 of 2025, which was not an easy target to hit, but we did. And we got our certificates of occupancy in by that time. And there were a lot of long weekends for a lot of people, but we have certainly hit the dates placed before us, and that was where the final agreement was done in July of 23. Give our construction start date of October 1, 23, first 50 by April 1 of 25. And then just like the first 50 being 18 months is what it would be from there.
Start of construction of units.
Yeah, and the start of construction of units. Yeah,
versus
versus RHID or roads. This was, the nullification on the actual agreement for the commencement of construction, and that was not infrastructure, that was actual construction. So the guidelines given to us as we review were very clear on this is when your time starts, this is when your 18 months is up, and we have worked very, very hard to hit those numbers.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, I move we approve resolution number 25-8311, a resolution of amendment for the Building Kansas LLC development agreement.
Second that. Excuse me. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Approval of resolution number 25-8311, a resolution of amendment for the Southview. Oh, sorry. That's the wrong copy, isn't it? Okay.
There was a typo in it.
Yeah, I know. And I didn't get the revised copy in front of me, and that's on me. So strike that and change it to Aero Plains.
I looked at that and didn't
Kansas
realize it
LLC.
myself.
Well,
Really, yeah.
read it out loud, and then thankfully caught that.
Want me to read it again?
No, I think we've got it. I mean, it's basically resolution number 25-8311, an amendment for Aero Plains. So those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passes 4-0. And I'm ready for another motion.
Mayor, I move we approve resolution number 25-8312 to recommend and support an amendment to the Moderate Income Housing America Rescue Plan Act Program Grant Agreement between Housing Kansas Resource Corporation and the city regarding Building Kansas LLC.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve resolution number 25-8312, resolution to recommend and support an amendment to the Moderate Income Housing American Rescue Plan Act Program Grant Agreement between Kansas Housing Resource Corporation and the city regarding Building Kansas LLC. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passes 4-0. On to 6.2.
Item 6.2, consider approval of resolution number 25-8310, authorizing the mayor to execute a license agreement with Building Kansas LLC for installation of a sign in the center island located at the intersection of Centennial Road and Lindbergh Lane.
Commissioners, the Planning Commission on August 2nd, 2022 adopted the plat for Aero Plains, which included proposed easements, right-of-way, and restricted areas of dedication. As part of that process, there is a decorative island that is in the subdivision at the entrance, and the developer is seeking permission to install signage in there for the subdivision. This process is similar to other subdivisions that we've done, that by creating this agreement over that, it also requires them to maintain the aesthetic appropriateness of that sign while it is in that island. So the proposed and attached license agreement would document how the developer guarantees formal approval and places the aesthetic improvements correctly in the right-of-way. So this is a standard operating procedure basically for adding subdivision signage. And that's what is in front of you today. You can either choose to approve Resolution 25-8310, authorizing the mayor to execute that license agreement for Building Kansas LLC's installation of the sign, or you could approve that resolution with amendments you deem appropriate, postpone and give staff further direction, or vote to deny the resolution.
Thank you. Do we have any follow-up questions?
Nope.
Is there a member of the public that wishes to comment on this item? And I will bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, I move we approve resolution number 25-8310, authorizing the mayor to execute a license agreement with Building Kansas LLC for installation of a sign in the center island located at the intersection of Centennial Road and Lindbergh Lane.
Second.
We have a second, and we have a motion and a second for approval of resolution number 25-8310, authorizing the mayor to execute a license agreement with Building Kansas LLC for installation of a sign in the center island located at the intersection of Centennial Road and Lindbergh Lane. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 4-0. On to 6.3.
Item 6.3, consider approval of resolution number 25-8309, proclaiming support for an application by KC Development LLC to submit a Kansas Housing Investor Tax Credit application for properties in the Sone Lake Addition.
Commissioners, thank you. As noted earlier, the city has had a number of efforts over the last few years to deal with housing and to try and increase the number of units. There are several programs at the state level which offer incentives for the increase in housing production. One of them in particular is managed through KHRC, or Kansas Housing Resource Corporation, and that administers federal and state housing programs on behalf of the state of Kansas. This particular program is part of HB 2237. It's a tax credit, and it is set up to help reduce the income tax liability for housing investors proportional to the awarded credits. We have had other KHITCs, what it's commonly referred to, approved on other projects. This program does not require the city to administer that grant. It's actually developer to the state directly. But it does ask applicants, who would be the developer in this case, to get a letter of recommendation or approval from their city or county body. In this case, we are working with the Sone Lake development that covers roughly 100 acres of a 150-acre tract that is bordered by South Ohio to the west, Lakeview Estates, or what is known as the Knox Sand Pit to the north, and then the Johnson Sand Pit on the east and Schilling Road to the south. There is a variety of product within that subdivision. Contains 154 residential building lots and 7 commercial building lots. In 2024, this entity, KC Development LLC, did apply for KHITC for 20 of their rental duplexes within Sone Lake. That would be part of Phase 1 and Phase 3C at the maximum ask of $30,000 per unit, and they were not awarded that. So they are coming back this year and making that request again. So the attached resolution would request the KHITC tax credits for 20 residential duplexes within Sone Lake Development Phase 1 and again Phase 3C at the maximum ask of $30,000 per unit. Same ask as 2024. So that is $600,000 of state income tax credit to be shared with the private investors of the subdivision. None of the 20 rental units included in this pending application have initiated construction as of September 15th, 2025. A map of those was included in the packet. The total project cost for the subdivision is estimated at $20.6 million. And the resolution of support, as I mentioned, is required for their application, and applications are due October 3rd, 2025. The fiscal note, as it regards the city, does not require any matching funds from us, nor is the city obligated to any future monetary expenses, and there is no dedicated staff time by adopting this resolution of support. So the City Commission may move to approve Resolution 258309, and that would be submitted with the KHITC application by the developers. You could also approve with amendments. You could postpone consideration or deny the resolution and provide additional direction to staff regarding how the City Commission would like to proceed. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions on this item?
Is this parcel, that northwest corner where infrastructure is going in right now?
I'm not sure if it's exactly where the infrastructure is going in right now, but it would have to, in order for them to get this money, they'll have to have infrastructure in before they can even start building. And the state program operates kind of a pay-as-you-go, so I mean, they're not even going to get any of those tax credits until they've completed the project and have to submit those receipts to the state. And because we don't manage the grant on behalf of the state, their timelines, their criteria, their procedures are all dealt with through the state. Essentially what the state is asking of the local governing bodies is, do you need these types of units? And I can tell you from our housing plan, these are desirable units.
Thank you.
I got the map here, and that's where it is, that northwest corner. Is that correct?
Yeah, the infrastructure is in place.
The developer is also here for questions.
Okay. Any more follow-up questions? Thank you. Anyone from the public wish to comment on this item? And I will bring it back to the commission.
I move to approve resolution number 25-8309, a resolution of support for KC Development LLC to submit a KHITC application.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of resolution number 25-8309, a resolution of support for KC Development LLC to submit a KHITC application. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passes 4-0. And we can get Vice Mayor Hoppick back in the room for the next item, please.
All right. Item 6.4 is to consider approval of ordinance number 25-11257, amending the Pioneer President's Place Plan Development District.
And Mr. Hers.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. We have a presentation here that goes over the item at hand, and what it is an amendment, a proposed amendment to the Pioneer President's Place PDD. It's a Plan Development District that took place in the early 2000s, where the former Roosevelt Lincoln School was located. And so the subject property is the former Roosevelt Lincoln School property, and that property is part of the original town of Salina, which was platted in 1862. It has two buildings. The north building that you see on the screen, get a laser pointer here. The north building that you see on the screen is the Lincoln building. It was constructed in 1915. And the building on the south end of the property is the Roosevelt building, which was constructed in 1920. From 2004 to 2006, the former Roosevelt Lincoln School was redeveloped for residential housing of elderly individuals 55 years older and 55 years plus. And the property is also placed on the National Register of Historic Places and the Register for Historic Places in Kansas. The current request, Hutton, who is the applicant in this case, is requesting approval of an amendment to the Pioneer President's Place PDD and renaming it to the RL Lofts PDD, and to make the following changes. One would be the repeal of the limitation of all dwellings must be occupied by elderly people ages 55 and plus, to allow residents of all ages to occupy the property. Number two, to allow 2 ground signs, one for each building, which typically is not allowed in a residential zoning district. Number three, to modify the number of off-street parking spaces required for the apartment complex from 102 off-street parking spaces to 58 off-street parking spaces, which is what the site currently has. And number four, to amend and update the landscape planting plan. So there are a few variations that are being requested. As I noted, there is a parking variance that is being requested, or a variation that is being requested, and that is to, instead of having 102 off-street parking spaces, the applicant is proposing to retain the existing 58 parking spaces. There's also a modification that's being requested to allow this property to have 2 ground signs, which typically residentially zoned properties are allowed to have 1 ground sign. And then in addition to those 2 new variations that are being requested, there are existing modifications that were approved with the 2005 PDD that allowed the Roosevelt building to have a 15-foot setback along 8th Street and 7th Street. The Lincoln building is allowed to have a 20-foot setback on 8th Street and 7th Street, and the Lincoln building is allowed to have a 5-foot setback to the property to the north. So those would be the 5 variations being requested with this proposed amended PDD. The role of the commission in this case is to consider the amended PDD, the variations being requested, and the final development plan. There are elevation drawings, site plan drawings, and landscape drawings that we will go through that will be part of your review process here. Looking at the zoning in the surrounding area, to the north, you have some C4 and C3 or R3 zone properties that consist of residential dwellings, including the Flanders Lee House to the north. On the east side, you have some C4 and R3 zoning that consists of a parking lot and Emmanuel Lutheran Church. On the south, you have more R3 zoning and St. John's Lutheran Church, and on the west side you have R3 zoning and additional residential housing, as well as the Christian Science Church there in that location. We'll get into some of the amendments, specifically the signs. As I noted, as part of the amended PDD application, the applicant is requesting to have 2 ground signs. Each ground sign is a little over 10 square feet in area. Both of them are limestone slab signs with engraved letterings. The Roosevelt Lincoln, or the Roosevelt building, will say Roosevelt RL Lofts and would be located just to the outside of the steps as you enter the building, facing the inner plaza area of the property. Similarly, the Lincoln building will have a sign that's about 10 square feet, same sign, says RL Lofts Lincoln, and would be situated towards the plaza area near the entrance of the Lincoln building. Off-street parking, the site has 2 parking lots, one in front of the Roosevelt Roosevelt building off of 8th Street, a second parking lot in front of the Lincoln building that is accessed off of 7th Street. Each of these parking lots have 29 off-street parking spaces. They're existing today, and the applicant is not proposing any changes to the parking lot. When the Planning Commission considered this item, this was probably their biggest point of conversation, and probably for the City Commission, it's probably their biggest as well. Everything else with the site pretty much stays the same. The biggest change that the applicant is proposing is to amend the use of the property from elderly housing, which has a lower parking requirement or lower off-street parking requirement, to standard general population in any age group housing that has a higher parking requirement. And so what that looks like is multifamily dwellings that are open to any age group require 2 off-street parking spaces per dwelling unit for the first 20 units, and then 1.5 parking spaces for thereafter. So the way the math works out with 61 dwelling units, they would be required to have 102 off-street parking spaces, which is noted in this little table here. Proposed is the existing 58. By comparison, the elderly housing requirements are exactly half, with 1 space per dwelling unit and then 3/4 of a parking space for every parking space after the first 20 units. So exactly half, so 51 parking spaces. So from a regulatory standpoint, the proposed use would have twice the parking, or twice the amount of required parking as the existing use. And so that's probably one of the biggest items to consider as you think about this item. The applicant did submit a parking analysis, which is attached to the staff report. There are 5 main topics within that the applicant can get into if they'd like. Staff will just summarize the headings of those topics. So 1 is preservation of historic landscape features. Number 2 is ample surrounding public parking capacity. 3 is documents of low car ownership among LIHTC residents. 4 is transit accessible infill location. 5 is clear precedent for reduced parking in similar historic projects. In landscaping, the applicant is proposing an amended landscape planting plan. Some of it is due to some of the existing plantings perishing over time and wanting it updated. The site is required to have 42 shade tree units or tree units in the front yard area. There are 3 frontages, so you would have 8th Street, 7th Street, and Mulberry all would have frontages where trees would be required. The applicant is proposing to add 17 trees and retain a number of existing trees. One of the items that staff will need to work with the design team of the applicants on is identifying the existing tree units to make sure that we calculate them appropriately and make sure that we have 42 total tree units in the front yard area. Staff is confident we can work with the applicant on that as part of their final site plan that would be reviewed by the Planning Commission if the proposed amendments by the applicant are approved by the City Commission. The Roosevelt Lincoln elevations are mainly going to be rehabbed and with maintenance applied. There are no significant changes to the exterior of the building. Most of the work are things like tuck pointing, replacing old non-historic windows, making sure that all of the wood siding is restored and in good condition, replacing some of the non-historic aluminum doors, things of that nature. The Heritage Commission did hear the proposed amendments or proposed project changes of the building on September 10th and approved the project. Similarly, the Design Review Board reviewed the project on September 11th for the new signage, and that also was approved. So if we go through the elevation drawings, you'll see that from the outside, there's very minimal changes that you probably wouldn't even notice post-construction other than any items that are in disrepair would be replaced or maintained. Here's the Lincoln building elevations. So staff analysis, the biggest change again is really the change to how the building is being used, how the property is being used, going from elderly housing to housing that would be non-restricted by age. And so that creates the potential problem or conflict with parking that the Planning Commission would have to consider. So at the September 2nd Planning Commission hearing, the Planning Commission approved or recommended approval of the amended PDD request, renaming the Pioneer President's Place PDD to RL Lost PDD, and approving the requested modifications subject to the following conditions. Condition number 1 is the applicant shall submit a revised preliminary development plan for the RL Lost development showing at least 42 existing and proposed tree units in the front yard setback area along 7th Street, 8th Street, and Mulberry. Number 2, the development limitations shall be as followed, which is A, development on the site shall be limited to multi-family residential apartments containing up to 61 dwelling units and customary accessory uses for servicing residents. This is no longer age restricted, so this is a modification from the current regulation ordinance. B, development on the site shall be subject to the development standards and bulk regulations of the R3 district, except for the setbacks along 7th, 8th Street and the side yard setback for the Lincoln School. C, development on the site shall be allowed to have 2 ground signs, 1 for each building. D, a total of 58 off-street parking spaces, including handicapped accessible parking spaces, shall be provided on the site. 3, that following approval of the preliminary development plan and passage of the ordinance by the City Commission, a final site development plan would have to be submitted to the Planning Commission for their review, and that any changes would have to also be reviewed by the Commission. Number 4, any substantial modifications proposed as part of the final development plan that are not in substantial compliance with the approved preliminary plan will require a new public hearing before the Planning Commission prior to its final approval, and any future amendment to the PDD ordinance itself shall require restarting the process again, meaning a new preliminary development plan that would have to be reviewed by the Planning Commission and the City Commission. As part of their recommended approval, the Planning Commission has the following findings in support of their recommendation. There's 8 of them, and although it's painful, I will read them to you just so you do know what they were. 1, the proposed change to allow general occupancy multifamily residential use is consistent with the property's underlying R3 zoning district classification. The project also aligns with the downtown future land use designation in the comprehensive plan, which encourages infill development, the preservation of historic buildings, and high-density residential uses in this area. Number 2, the proposed amendment continues the adaptive reuse of 2 historically significant buildings, and by removing the age restriction could potentially ensure their long-term economic viability and productive use, thereby preventing potential future vacancy and blight while fulfilling the primary goal of the original PDD. 3, the requested modifications to the number of off-street parking spaces from the required 102 spaces to the existing 58 spaces is justified by several unique factors, including the availability of nearby public parking lots, the site's transit-accessible infill location, and the applicant's analysis suggesting lower vehicle ownership rates for comparable housing projects. Number 4, the change from an age-restricted use to a general occupancy use will not adversely affect the character of the surrounding neighborhood, as the number of dwelling units and the overall residential nature of the property remain unchanged. The intensity of use is comparable to the existing senior housing and remains less intense than the original function as a middle school. 5, the request for 2 ground signs is reasonable for the wayfinding and identity, as the development consists of 2 large distinct buildings, the former Roosevelt and Lincoln schools, with a separate primary entrances and official street addresses that are separate. Number 6, public facilities and services are adequate to support the proposed change in occupancy, as the number of dwelling units and the physical footprint of the development is not changing or increasing. 7, approval of the amended landscape plan conditioned upon meeting the city's tree unit requirements will ensure the public remains an aesthetically pleasing and well-maintained property that contributes positively to the downtown area. 8, the PDD zoning mechanism is specifically intended to allow the flexibility and deviations from standard zoning regulations where an innovative site plan and overall public benefit can be demonstrated, which is applicable in this case, and adaptively reuse a significant historic property. So the action items, staff has identified 4 potential action items for you. The first is the City Commission could concur with the recommendations and findings of the Planning Commission in approving ordinance number 25-11257, renaming the Pioneer President's Place to RL Lost PDD, and approving the requested modifications with the Planning Commission's recommended conditions. This would require 3 votes. Number 2, the City Commission disagrees with the recommendation of the Planning Commission. It may return the item to the Planning Commission together with reasons for its disagreement. Number 3, the Planning Commission could postpone consideration of this zoning application to a future meeting to allow staff to collect additional information. Number 4, the City Commission could overturn the recommendation of the Planning Commission and approve a motion to deny the application and ordinance number 25-11257, providing there are 4 votes in support of denial. The Commission will also need to adapt alternative findings in support of the denial. So staff's recommendation is to move that the City Commission concur with the recommendations and findings of the Planning Commission and approve ordinance number 25-11257, renaming the Pioneer President's Place PDD, the Arlos PDD, and approving the requested modifications subject to the conditions that we've already gone through, but they are listed here as well. So that staff would entertain any questions that you might have, and we can revisit any of the slides or graphics that you want to revisit.
Thank you. Do we have any follow-up questions on this
Maybe
item?
I missed it. How many one-bedroom units and how many two-bedroom units out of the 62?
The applicant could speak to that. I know that the number of units are not changing and the type of units that are existing are not changing. The only structural changes that are taking place to the units are, for lack of a better word, like a closet for utility purposes is being added to each of the units.
Yeah. For parking purposes, I was trying to figure out how many were one-bedroom and how many were two-bedroom. Maybe the applicant could... And I have one other question that the applicant can maybe answer too.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Tony Kresnick, Flint Hills Holdings Group, 7301 Mission Road, Prairie Village, Kansas. Commissioner Havoc, there are 49 one-bedroom units and only 12 two-bedroom units.
Thank you.
So that comes up. Okay, so then it helps me feel better about the parking. Because basically if you had one car for the one bedroom, that's 49, the two bedroom be 24, so you really have 73, so the 102 seems a little high compared to the number of bedroom units.
Unless there are 2 people in the one bedroom.
Possibly.
And again, it gets into who's going to be occupying.
Yeah.
I'll let you finish with your
And then I guess
questions, yeah.
my other question is, I understand because of this the historical whatever, that parking cannot be expanded into the green space. Could you expand on that? Because I guess I don't quite understand how that's affecting the historical value or historical preservation of the buildings.
I've never understood that stance myself, Commissioner. It's referred to as a historic open space. And, you know, if we were talking about the grassy knoll in Dallas, I could probably understand that. We are not here, but this is about the 4th time we've run into this discussion. And to your point, to be specific, that flows through 2 bodies. One at the state level is referred to as the State Historic Preservation Office, and then at the federal level, it's referred to as the National Park Service. And while I'm up here, if I might address Commissioner Davis's comment in terms of the 1-1 parking ratios. National trend is going the exact opposite way in general, market rate housing included, but specifically for affordable housing, you very, very rarely see a 1-1 parking ratio, especially in downtown developments. I know many of you are familiar with some of my work in the Warehouse Arts District in Lawrence, Kansas. Any given day, our parking lots in Lawrence, Kansas are about 50% occupied at a 1-1 ratio, so about 0.5 cars per apartment. And to that end, the city of Lawrence actually just changed their codes, eliminating all parking for multifamily projects in the greater downtown area. So just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is this totally affordable housing or
No, it is not. We did maintain the exact same 61 units. We did re-enter an agreement with the state of Kansas, specifically the Kansas Housing Resources Corporation, to maintain an additional 30 years of affordability. That we volunteered for that. But instead of it being 100% 55 and older, which we disagree with in almost every community from a balancing standpoint. We also wanted to eliminate the 100% affordable factor. So we were able to work with the KHRC and get 20% of the units market rate with 80% maintaining the affordability status. So 12 units will be market rate and the remainder will remain affordable. And the reason that we changed both of those, getting away from only people 55 years of age can live here, or only people that are 60% AMI can live here, we wanted to provide something for everybody in a much more balanced project. And I don't remember who said it earlier, but if you think about it, this project was redeveloped 20 years ago, and it needed to be redeveloped a few years ago too, right? And so we can probably all agree that that we needed to find a more sustainable approach, and we've believe that we've definitely found that. And essentially, what we're here asking you for today is permission to invest $20 million into this project, and we believe that with the new program that we have in the capital that we're going to bring forward, that this project will be self-sustainable for decades and decades to come.
Thank you.
Why? I have a few questions here.
Sorry about that.
Don't get too far away. My parents went to school there in the 40s, and if this project coming forward, I now know which is the Lincoln Building and which is the Roosevelt. I went to South, so. So this is 30 units in each building?
30 and 31.
30 and 31. Okay. We vacated the Roosevelt building and renovating it. When that's finished, will you vacate the Lincoln building and renovate it as well?
Yes, there's actually only 11 tenants left in the Lincoln building as we stand here today.
Really?
That's right.
Okay. And that was on the age restriction. I kind of took offense to for the elderly. It kind of.
Well, took offense from what direction?
That age includes us.
Right.
So is that model not working for the senior housing?
It's a very difficult model to work in smaller communities. I have developed 4 affordable housing developments that started off restricting the tenants to 55 years of age or older, all 3 in southeast Kansas, or 3 or 4. And on each one of them, I went back to the state, hat in hand, and asked for that restriction to be removed. And the reason being is, if you think about it, 55 years of age obviously is by no means elderly, but yet you still have to, your business model essentially is designed to say no to 2/3 of the people that show up saying, hey, I need somewhere to live. And that's really the same way with not having any market rate units. The school teacher gets a raise, all of a sudden she makes too much money, you have to say no. And so we tried to eliminate those limiting factors.
Now, were those units that you mentioned, were they fully occupied? I mean,
in Southeast Kansas?
Right, even though you couldn't rent them to a 30-year-old, I mean, were there enough 55-year-olds to fill them up?
It would depend on the project, and I must admit, this is 4 or 5 years ago. I don't recall. The projects never struggled financially like these did, and they were also brand new. They were within 2 or 3 years. We just got sick of saying no to good people, and we went to the state and said that, we're struggling. Now, we were also talking about Fort Scott, Kansas. I believe the population in the entire county seats about 9,000 people, and we're also talking about Parsons, Kansas. I believe that's in Lebec County, right around 9,000 people as well. And so definitely a smaller market, but here in Salina, there are quite a few affordable senior communities, whereas down there we needed to change the model.
How many of the folks who left Roosevelt left with the assumption that they were going to be moving back in?
It's their choice, and it's not an assumption. It's a live waiting list. The property management company, Van Bensbergen, that was managing the project at the time is still managing the project now, and anybody that wants to move back into the project has the right of first refusal to do so, or the first right to move back in, I should say.
All right, so in theory, if I know some of them probably have passed on, some have moved, et cetera, but if they wanted to move back in, they would be given first opportunity to do so, and I mean, of the former residents, because I guess I'm still trying to wrap my head around younger, more mobile people, particularly in a rural area. Because living downtown in Salina, if you're working anyway, does not afford you the same luxuries of transportation that you'd have in a city like St. Louis or even Wichita. Because we have bus service, but there's no grocery. Well, it's a grocery store they can walk to, but if they're too old or handicapped, it's just hard to get there. So the car is more necessary actually in a rural area than it is an urban area. I'm just...
To answer your question, I believe, and I can provide you an update on this. I apologize, I didn't think to ask the question, but I believe roughly 20 people expressed interest and therefore are on the waiting list already. And as you may recall, I'm the developer of the Lee Lofts projects downtown, and we were able to accommodate, I believe, 7 or 8 of our tenants between Lee Lofts Phase 1 and Lee Lofts Phase 2. Obviously, we haven't begun Lee 3 yet, but a lot of these people have expressed interest in staying downtown. Frankly, I'm not sure what percentage of people will move from the Lee buildings, as an example, back in, but they're definitely welcome to do so. And like I mentioned, Van Bensbergen's maintaining that waiting list.
All right, and what experience does the state rely on to set the number of parking spaces for what you're proposing as the new use compared to the current use?
The state leaves that up to the local jurisdictions. Again, like I mentioned, there's a huge push going away from any parking requirements at all, so the state's leaving that up to you. And I apologize, it's 100% my fault, but I did not realize that making some of these adjustments would result in a variance needing to be requested, or else it would have been before this body months ago.
Okay, and I have one more question on that, but I'll have to rework it before we finish discussion. But one other question. For a person just walking down the sidewalk, what does the change in the setback look like? I mean, would anyone notice?
So the setbacks, the purpose for the setback variations is to protect the existing buildings. So there are no proposed changes to the setbacks of the existing buildings. It's just making sure that the building is protected so that if there's a fire or tornado or the building is damaged, it can be rebuilt in its current location. So the buildings, Roosevelt and Lincoln, currently have a variation or modifications under the current PDD that's in place that allows for those exact same setback modifications. And what the applicant is doing in this case is carrying those forward. So those are not new modifications. They would be carried over from the existing PDD ordinance, but they want to be carried over so that the building, if it's damaged, can be rebuilt in its current location and wouldn't have to meet the full 25-foot setback requirement.
Thank you.
Well, back to the parking. Commissioner Hoppick addressed it a little bit. Is it the factor that you don't feel it's necessary, or there's no space to add parking?
That's a good question.
Talked about the historic preservation.
Yeah. We don't feel that it's necessary. Time and time again, we're proving that. Even if it was necessary, which we don't feel that it is, we don't believe that we would receive approval from the State Historic Preservation Office and or National Park Service, or at least not in a timeline that would work with the redevelopment of these 61 apartment units, which is already underway.
I guess I don't see what's historic about that parcel in the middle. That was the gym and all that.
Yeah, I would agree.
The skateway in the wintertime, yeah.
I would agree, and I also learned today that there was a breezeway that connected the two buildings. So
the mayor probably is more familiar with all that.
I didn't attend there, but my father taught there for over 30 years, so I had my fair share of time in there. In the gym, actually, while shooting hoops. Never had a chance, but yeah.
I might mention specific to the Lincoln building, any exterior changes that is deemed to change the historic facade or a secondary facade of a building are very important for state and federal historic tax credit reviewers. So I believe that might have factored in as well. And I do have my team with Hutton Construction, who's been working with the our historic consultants at Heritage Group. Would one of you guys like to make comment to the parking lot reconfiguration?
Hi, my name is Kristen Anderson, architect and design project manager over at Hutton. So what I can say for the description of this green space, you're talking about how it is historically contributing. The site as a whole, I believe in the background it was indicated as school park. So this area has always been designated as a place for recreation and the passage of people, not the passage of cars. So in that interpretation and application to the National Historic Facility, it's our belief, and I believe the belief of the state historic, that putting a large transit-oriented use in the space would be out of alignment with the existing and original purpose of the reconfiguration of this area. So as you can see it now, it is dedicated towards recreation through walking paths, while also being able to provide a little bit of that transit amenity. But this, I think, in the existing condition is a good use of that area and balance that we don't want to disturb.
Thank you.
Do you have a timeline on completion of the phase one?
Bob, would you like to speak to that? Our build project manager.
I thought you were the project manager.
So I will just specify design.
Hi, Bob.
Build. So.
Bob Ross, project manager on the build side. In terms of schedule, we're probably looking at about a year project here. And yes, we have begun work on the Roosevelt building. The intent is to start work on the Lincoln building at the earliest possible date when it's totally vacated. So general timeline.
That's a good year.
At.
Thank you. Any more questions? Well, they're gorgeous buildings. It's nice to see someone take an interest in them and keep them up. We'll bring this item to to the public if anybody wants to comment on it.
Mark Labus. From what I heard, it's basically whatever they wanted, they didn't for the parking. And I know parking downtown, especially on Fridays, Saturdays, or Steeple has something going on. Those parking lots get full. They get full quick. So that is something to think about, the parking. From the sounds of it, they didn't even approach the state or whoever they needed to find out ahead of time, and are just requesting a variance for that area. That's what I basically heard from them. If that's something different, then that's something different. But they didn't approach anybody about this before they even started their project. And that should have been taken care of a long time ago. So here it's a contractor issue, whatnot, and now you're expected to do a variance.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else?
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is John Holloway, 217 South 9th. I'm going to be speaking to you today to provide a factual account of what has transpired at Pioneer President's Place / RL Lofts. And my purpose is to urge greater caution in the future public-private partnerships, especially given the oversight on this particular property over the years. The current developer, Mr. Krishnich himself, admitted at the Planning Commission meeting that the property was in severe disrepair and very, very rough shape when his group acquired it right around 20 months ago. A physical needs assessment that you guys took a look at in April of 2024 further declared that some units were uninhabitable. During the time of Mr. Krisnich's ownership, while he was collecting rent and public funds, he admits that the HVAC units were failing, windows were leaking, and major renovations were needed. Yet during this period, there were no documented or reported efforts of improvement or reprieve for the existing residents. In July of this year, residents received just days' notice to vacate. Mr. Krisnich admitted to the Planning Commission that they deliberately waited until after securing the project funding. So that's 18 months between knowing that they're going to have to vacate the building and notifying the people who lived there that they were going to have to vacate. Excuse me. And then during that time, as you guys may be aware of, the landscaping slipped through the cracks, I guess, when he was transferring the property between his different LLCs. And then when I went and mowed it, so the people who were being forcefully evicted wouldn't have to trudge through 2-foot tall grass and weeds and stickers, he had me trespassed from the property. So from my point of view as a citizen of Salina, the sequence of events from the admitted neglect to the delayed notification and Mr. Krisnich's threat of bankruptcy if the demands aren't met, that was from the Planning Commission meeting where he stated that if he did not get the parking variances, that the project would be bankrupt and the property shuttered. I considered that a threat. All of this signals a fundamental failure in how public-private partnership has been managed, and I urge this commission to exercise extreme diligence. The city has gotten ripped off by previous neglect, and without careful oversight, this pattern could repeat. Public funds must serve the public good, and our vulnerable residents deserve genuine protection. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'm available for any questions. And then about the parking variances, didn't you guys just talk about building a hotel right where the city parking that they're planning on using for the variances in that area? Maybe I missed the map wrong. I'm available for questions if anybody has any.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
I'm Ken Ritz, and I've lived in Salina most of my life. When you're looking at parking, you have to look at the type of vehicles that will be developing and have developed. Have you noticed how many three-wheeled vehicles there are, which are substantially smaller than automobiles? Bicycles with little electric motors. And if you live downtown, which I did for a number of years, the 200 block of South 4th Street, you can do with a lot less motorized transportation than when you're out on the edges at all. And I hope we'll see the city bus service. If we could double the frequency of buses operating, you'd be amazed how many more folks, I think, will be riding the bus. It appears that there's more use of the buses and that their routes have been extended some. So the amount of space in parking lots that you need to accommodate a given number of people may be reduced significantly. And then you can leave the green grass in the middle and be all right. So if I recall, because I went to Roosevelt Lincoln when the gymnasium or whatever cafeteria was in the middle and also linked the two schools together. So yeah, I would see that there could be some nice uses made of more than just grass in between. That if we don't have to turn it into a parking lot, which, amongst other things, in the summertime, especially if it's asphalt, the temperature rises substantially, and it's already high enough. Mother Nature keeps us from catching a cold in the summertime. So anyway.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? I'll bring it back to the commission.
Question for staff. What are options for securing designated, guaranteed off-property parking, obviously on public streets, for the residents who live there? I'm concerned about, the 70, 75-year-old person who comes home on a Friday night when there's an event at the Stiefel and people are out, and because of younger folks moving in, those 58 spaces are taken. You wouldn't say typically that having to walk a block is that far, but most older folks here, I think, are used to parking fairly close to their building, particularly if they're bringing groceries in and stuff. Do we have, are there ways to reserve, let's say, a row of parking spaces? I'm just going to use the 7th Street parking lot as an example, but, for residents of a certain space, or angled parking. Of course, that would mean tearing up the sidewalk and relocating the sidewalk and stuff. But
yeah, certainly, I think we could designate off-street parking for specific use. I don't know if there's a specific process for that.
So I would say this. I would say that the off-street parking regulations, those requirements are in place so that each property and each development substantially meets its own needs with its off-street parking, so that cars are not parking in the streets or affecting the neighboring properties. In our public parking lots, which we do have across the street on 7th Street, we do not reserve or allow private individuals to reserve parking spaces for their own personal use because they're public parking lots. That's not a practice that we've engaged in. Additionally, there is quite a bit of on-street parking along 7th and 8th Street that doesn't get used, that could be used, but cannot be reserved for parking for this use either because it's in the public street. So in their analysis, which the applicant can speak more to, they did note that there is public parking in the area, quite a bit of it, and there is quite a bit of on-street parking that could be available, but those are not parking spaces that can be specifically reserved by this development. One thing I guess we could point out, and that we're not really sure of because it's somewhat anecdotal, is that the parking that exists today for the 61 units is the parking that's projected to exist tomorrow for the 61 units. Now, I don't know how much opening up the rental units to people of all age groups versus just elderly is going to change the number of vehicles that are going to be on site. The applicant believes that it's going to be a fairly insignificant change. I can't really speak to that. That is a question that you'll have to kind of way. But in terms of reserving public parking space or spaces in public lots or on public streets for use by private properties is not something that we've done in the past.
Did we make, maybe it was handicap spaces on the north side of the Lee buildings on Elm Street?
Yeah, so the one thing that is unique on Santa Fe is that there are a number of on-street parking spaces that are like pull-in style, and you see that in kind of the historic downtown more so than other locations. So those would be pre-existing non-conforming stalls that we've always allowed. Some of them happen to be ADA. You are correct that Lee Lofts did, as part of their project, make sure that the slopes of some of the on-street parking on Elm Street met ADA requirements so they could be used as handicap accessible spaces, because that's one of the big challenges when you have on-street parking is that ADA requirements have slope limitations, so that there's a very gradual change in slope, and when you start messing with or changing the surfacing of streets and roads, it tends to mess with those slopes. So there are some existing on-street pull-in parking spaces that have been credited to properties that are like on-street like that, but that's not something that the city has set a precedent on citywide. It's more in the historic district, and there's some around KW too that are existing.
There's on-street parking on the west side of 7th Street, the east side of 8th, and then also on Mulberry, correct?
Yes.
So when we look at the number of parking spots, there's a significant number of parking spots that are adjacent to these properties.
Right now, Sunday mornings, the spaces decrease some because of some of the churches. It's more the space that's available at 11 o'clock at night. Are there going to be a minimum number of handicap spaces in the 58 spaces that are there now? Or will that increase?
I can pull up the site plan here. Give me a moment. So here is the site plan. Each building, both Roosevelt and Lincoln, will have 4 handicap parking spaces adjacent to the closest spaces basically to each of the buildings. So there'd be 8 total. So of the 58 off-street parking spaces, 8 of them would be handicap accessible.
As kind-hearted as this notion is, I think it's a slippery slope, because where do you stop delineating who gets special parking and who doesn't? I mean, we already have the established handicap parking with the placards and the tags, and I could see a dynamic where if we apply that to this project, and all other multifamily dwellings all over town might be subject to the same requirement. And again, this is not going to be 55 and older. It's going to be a variety of different ages and demographics. Anecdotally, I'd offer up most of your elderly tenants are going to be probably the first ones home for the evening, and they'll probably have their pick of parking stalls. At least that's the dynamic I've seen with some of the multifamily dwellings I manage. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a nice gesture. I just don't think it's practical. That's just my 2 cents on it.
It just depends on who's actually going to be moving in. Would the residents have any recourse once this is all done and it's obvious that there are not enough parking spaces?
Yeah, that's a thought that I had, that this majority of this is going to be fair market apartments. So if someone's not happy with the parking situation, they don't have to lease there. And as far as accessible parking, this exceeds ADA standards.
So I would say no, there wouldn't be any recourse for somebody. I mean, they would have the option to move out. And I just went back through our mapping. If you go back our aerials just on the city's website, you go back to 2014, 2017, 2020, and 2023, and there's literally 2 or 3 cars parked along the on-street in any of those. And I know those are just a given snapshot and one picture at one point in time, but there's just not, it doesn't look like there's a lot of people that are parking along the street in that area. So, and actually for that matter, the parking lots are not full either in any of those views. And I get that the use changed or will be changing, but it doesn't seem like there's been a great deal of cars parked in those lots or along the street throughout time based on just that one snapshot.
And I travel 7th Street, Mulberry, and 8th quite a bit because of where my business is located, and there's a lot of on-street parking that's not used. So I feel like there'll be plenty of parking for residents. So.
Well, if I had a suggestion to offer, a no vote would be worthwhile, but without one, it's kind of wasted. Go ahead. No, I'm just.
Oh no! So are we ready for a motion? I guess I'll make a motion and we'll see where it goes. Mayor Linkowitz, I move we concur with the recommendations and findings of the Planning Commission and approve ordinance number 25-11257, renaming the Pioneer President's Place PDD to RL Lofts PDD, and approving the requested modifications with the Planning Commission's recommended conditions.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to concur with the Planning Commission's recommendations and findings and approve ordinance number 25-11257, renaming the Pioneer President's Place PDD to RL Lofts PDD, and approving the requested modifications with the Planning Commission's recommendations and conditions. And that's a roll call vote.
All right, Commissioner Davis?
Nay.
Commissioner Hoppick?
Aye.
Commissioner Ivey?
Aye.
Commissioner Longbine?
Aye.
Mayor Linkowitz?
Aye. Leads us to other business. Any commissioner have any other business they wish to discuss?
I wanted to bring the public's attention to a new piece of art, a sculpture that has recently been placed at the north side of Lakewood Park. I went by there and admired it the other day. It was donated by former governor and Salina resident Bill and Linda Graves, and it's titled Kansas Promise. And I encourage the public to go by and check it out. It's just a very nice sculpture of 2 kids looking over a fence. And we're very fortunate to receive that gift from the Graves family.
Very nice. Any other commissioner have any other business?
Just one thing. I mentioned to the city manager, I know his plate's only got about 80 things on it right now, but the East Crawford Bridge, we now have a sign that slows the traffic down to 30 miles an hour. But if you're driving westbound, that sign is so close to the bridge that it's, without slamming on your brakes, it's hard to go from, I don't know what the speed limit is, but most cars coming down a hill are doing 50 miles an hour, to slow it down to 30 before you get to the bridge.
And East Magnolia is the. You said East Crawford, but it's East
I'm sorry,
Magnolia.
did I say Crawford?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
The East Magnolia.
East
Bridge,
Magnolia.
where we just recently placed the signs. Sorry,
Okay.
didn't want to.
No, I'm that slipped right past me. Hope that's not a sign of things to come. But if there could be either the sign moved a little further from the bridge or just a nondescript sign that says reduce speed ahead. I mean, even knowing the sign is there now, it's still hard for me to get down to 30 miles an hour. At least I feel safer going across the bridge with oncoming traffic at 30 than 50.
Without a doubt.
I don't know what the engineering requirements and all the warrants and stuff are, but
Yeah, we can
If they
certainly
could go
look at
out and
that and look at, generally, we typically follow the MUTCD standards, and so we would have done that for this location as well, but we can take a look at it.
Thank you.
Well, I spearheaded that project, and the person that brought it to our attention, she has reached out and said, people aren't slowing down. And
Well, by the time they see the sign,
yeah,
they're on the bridge.
coming down there,
Right.
it is.
Yeah.
Going the other way to the east, you're going uphill, so.
Not quite as fast.
Any other commissioner with any other business? Okay, we'll move on to Citizens Forum. Please keep your comments within the 3-minute time constraints and keep things cordial, please, and thank you.
Tony Johnson, Salina, Kansas. To piggyback on what Commissioner Davis was saying, it's a thrill a minute coming down that hill with a trailer load of gravel weighing about 83,000 pounds and nobody on Markley stops. And then when they pull out in front of you and hang a left in that subdivision right there, that gets real exciting. So it'd be nice to see a little more enforcement out there because that stop sign just seems to be a suggestion. But anyway, I noticed how quickly you all provided Hutton or whoever the variance on the parking. But I know Freightliner, you all made them jump through hoops for about 2 years just to get a permit to build a small warehouse, parts warehouse behind their existing building. They had to have parking spots for every employee, even though they worked multiple shifts. You wanted trees and goldfish ponds and sidewalks. I mean, why'd you make them, fight for 2 years to do this, and you all handled this in about 20 minutes? Same way as Salina Wrecker. Let's be honest. Salina Wrecker put up a shop behind their existing building, and now they've had to plant 9 trees in the right-of-way there, right underneath the major electric transmission line. And then y'all forced them to put concrete back there, not where the public can access, behind their gate where they park, and stripe that for parking. I'm sure they're probably frustrated watching you all, just brush this off. So, I don't know. I just look out for small business. Don't always just cater to the big guys. Small business, it's a tough road to hoe. So, anyway, thank you guys.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? No, with that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move for adjournment.
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
There you are.